We'll start off today with a 1-inch brush and some yellow and white, and I've already put just a little clear gel and white right here in the sky area. Not a very big sky today, but that's okay. What little sky there is will be nice. We'll just blend that right into that wet paint. Everything else is dry. That makes it easier to paint. And of course, if you're enjoying these and you'd like to see more, be sure to leave a like and subscribe for more painting videos. Also click the bell icon next to the subscribe button so that you can be notified when I have a new video out. All right, that works. Yes, I like this. See, I'm just transitioning into the yellow ochre tones. And those yellow ochre tones are pretty. I think they really work. Not too much, maybe. Not too much, but definitely some. Definitely some. There we go. This is a shiny, beautiful painting today. Take a little red, actually. Let's mix a little red into that. Not too much. Ooh, that's way too much. Not too much, I put way too much in. That happens more than I wish it would. Can't help it. Sometimes we get excited. There we go. Now would be a great time to look at your versions of the painting that I did last week. Everybody's doing such an amazing job. Helps to stand back from your painting. About 6 feet away. Get a nice good look at it that way. Otherwise you can't see what you're doing close up. All right. Now don't skip this step here. I've got a shop towel and I'm wiping off the canvas. Now you don't have to do it with this is a blue shop towel. You don't have to do it with that. You can do it with a rag or something. Just don't do it with a paper towel. It leaves these terrible shavings. You can never get them out. It's awful. So shop towels or rags. But this helps to get that extra paint off the canvas, and it will allow me to place just a little bit of blue next to this yellow, which is ordinarily a little risky. It allows me to do that. And it certainly minimizes the chances of, green happening in the sky or just some weird funky colors we don't want. So get all that paint off of the canvas. Now before I jump just right into blue, I'm going to kind of go in with some purple. And then I think I'll do my blue toward the top. I think that will look the best. Also be the safest. Had that purple a little too dark, so just lightened it up with some white. And I've got my 3/4 brush. This works out pretty well for clouds. You can just use the corner and scrub. It's a nice soft brush, it works well. You could certainly use the filbert brush. It's normally my go-to brush. I just like to change it up from time to time. As you know, I do like a little variety in my painting techniques, and I think that's important, to change it up. If you just do the same old thing all the time, you probably end up kind of unexcited. You gotta be excited. So you gotta just change how you do things a little bit from time to time. That is good, and it's okay. Nice, look at that. See, one fun thing about painting is you're actually not locked in to anything, really. I mean, come on. What are you really locked into? You can do just about whatever you like. This is acting almost like a dry canvas, the way that we've got all that oil paint wiped off, and whatever is left here is merely a stain on the canvas. You couldn't get that off if you scrubbed all day long. So it makes really for a very easy painting experience. If you're not wiping your canvases off, you're really doing things the hard way. I'm going up here with just a little blue. This is subtle. This is not a tremendous amount of blue. If you do too much, I'm afraid we would get green. And over here, we're probably gonna have trees anyways. In fact, I think I'm gonna cover up a lot of that. Maybe I'll allow just a little to show through, but I'm not gonna let much of that show through. There we go. And maybe a little blue up on this side. Again, not a lot of that's gonna show through. It's gonna be a lot of evergreens today. A lot of evergreens. So that's pretty much, that's the sky. That's about it. We don't need to do a whole lot more anymore. I think would just be a big waste. So I've got my blender brush. We're just gonna try to soften the edges, not too much, not too much. It's a good idea to just take a breath before you go to do this. You get in here, you're going too fast. Your sky becomes kind of muddy. We don't want that. There we go. So you just kind of put it back in to low gear and go slowly. Yeah, that works. Isn't that funny? In painting, there's certain techniques that work out better if you're just going fast, like a tree, for instance. And then there's other techniques like blending or maybe kind of finessing a mountain peak or something that works way better if you're going slow. So now we're gonna go ahead and drop in just some random evergreen shapes. Nothing really, like I said, kind of random. Nothing really planned out or anything like that. And however they fall out of the brush, we'll just work with what happens. I'm using a soft purple color. And let's see, right up here you can see I've got a basic sketch. Oh, it's important to do the sketches, isn't it? Without a sketch, you're gonna be lost. It's just the way it is. And that's okay, you know, just important to do a sketch. Very important to do a sketch. That sketch will keep you from going off kind of in some weird direction that doesn't really make sense. You'll have a much better composition if you take the time to plan it out a bit. There, that works. Look at that. Just some background trees. Fan brush works well, but lots of other brushes work for this, including the filbert brush. Works great for this. I'm doing all my trees in purple, and then I'll go back and add some green on top. And that way I kind of have some purple showing through. I think it'll be interesting that way. I really do. I think it'll work. Nice. All right. Don't want to get into the repetitive fan brush stamp, stamp, stamp. Oh, that can happen so easily. Get in there, make sure that's kind of filled. Yeah, that worked. I like that filled in better there. Okay, that works. Now I'm gonna underpaint the cliff faces here, at least the ones that are on the highlight side. I'm gonna underpaint them with kind of this soft tan color. And I think that'll work pretty well. Not too bright yet, because we need to have room for highlight, of course, but fairly golden in color. Maybe that may be a little too golden, but it's good to have a little there, you know. Rather than just erasing it all, you can just kind of work around it. See, more than one color going. It's kind of good. Let's take some white and some red. I want to make this a little more kind of soft. There we go. Not quite so golden, a little more brown. That works. Fairly dark, like I said, you know, you don't want it super bright just yet. At least I don't want mine super bright just yet. I think that we'll build up to that. This is really going to be nice. I can kind of picture where I'm going. And I like it. I like where we're going. Nice, look at that. Of course, everything is subject to change. This cliff face may very well change. Who knows? We are going to have to add little shadows in also. Can't forget the little shadow areas. See, I've got some water sketched in. We're going to have some huge, huge boulders on the sides, which should be interesting. Nice. All right, I think that pretty much works. Well, now we're going to be painting some more trees, and they're really going to be done the same way. I might just leave these more rough than the other ones. I know you're wondering, what do you mean more rough? Why would you do that? Well, it's because I'm probably going to pull out with the detail brush some extra branches and stuff. So this just kind of gets the paint on there, and it acts as my second palette. And then we can just simply pull our details out on top of that. It works. Totally works. Oh, right here. What do you think? Should we do a slender? Let's do a slender one. One that maybe is lost some of the branches. I like that out in the middle. If you kind of do one every once in a while, it just doesn't have a lot of branches on it. Fairly thick here in the middle. But toward the top, not a lot of branches. It really makes for a more interesting tree, especially toward the middle of the painting as well. I like it. Again, just throwing paint on the canvas. No real rhyme or reason to it. Doesn't really matter. Bring one in like so. Oh yes. And again, just the same way. Just slapping paint on the canvas. If you're not good at evergreens, this is the kind of evergreen for you, because you go back and fix it later. You just don't have to worry about it for now. Helps to have that sketch so at least know where you're going. All right, I kind of like that negative space in there. I think that's interesting. It's good to have some negative space. That's those pockets of in and out where you can see the background. If you're painting a tree and you fill it all in, it won't look as good. The more rough and irregular your tree, the more interesting your painting will be. Let's go on the left side. Large tree coming in on that left side. Oh yeah. This is going to add a lot of variety. I like a little red in my color. Here's my color. Not much of a color, just looks dark, but I do like a little red in it when I'm painting a sunset. I think it helps with just the feel of the painting. Now I'm going to paint in right down here, just a little water. I've already sketched out the water area, so I don't have to paint the yellow over something like the rocks. That would not be a great thing. Anyway, there you go. maybe just a little touch of our red. Not too much, but just enough to soften it so it's not just yellow. I think that works. The rest is really going to be reflection of the land areas. So for that, we'll want to do some blue and some red. Honestly, we're just trying to make a color that is similar to what we have up in the background. That's all there is to it. Something similar. And we'll pull down. And pulling down tends to give you pretty quick and easy water reflections. You can tweak this any which way you need to make it fit, you know, pull some reflections of the highlight and whatnot as well. Super easy. Just one of the easiest things to do in oils, I'd say, is move and place and just create some really decent looking reflections. There's a little blue because I see blue right there. Now, as you can see here, I went ahead and wiped off the canvas really good, and that's so we could put the rocks in without having to worry about mixing with the tree colors that I wouldn't necessarily want in my rocks. There we go. That's all there is to it. It's fun though, isn't it? It is fun. See, what's great about wiping the canvas off too is you have better freedom for doing the shape that you want. You don't have to follow the contour of the trees or anything. See, I'm just gonna go right here and I'll bring my trees back down to meet the rocks. Super straightforward. And like I said, you know, I think it just works out better because you're not gonna be stuck doing a rock in a place you don't want it. It's gonna be exactly where you want it and nowhere else. It works. How about if we do a rock here? We're kind of planning that from the beginning. There's one. All right, now over here, maybe some bushes or something. I don't know. I don't want my rock to continue all the way across. Hey, I can't wait to see what you guys do for this one. Maybe take the rocks in a different direction or do them the exact same. Either way, it'll be fun to see your version. So definitely share it. We'll put the hashtag on the screen again so you can be sure to share using that hashtag, and I'll grab it and stick it in the next video if you do it in time. Here we go. That works. So yes, it's very, very subtle. I'm just getting my midtones and highlights, and then I just come in with some brown and black. Really doesn't matter, just something dark. And then you paint in your darks, but do your midtones and highlights first because those are very easily muddied. You don't want to do that. Now I'm just adding some shading here to the cliff face. I've got just honestly a very, very similar purple color to just about everything that was already up here in the mountain. I'm not trying to change this area drastically. I'm just trying to add in some amount of subtle shading. Anything too intense though, I think it's gonna subtract from the overall effect. I don't think it's gonna look good. Lights, of course, coming through there. Got to remember that. Let me see, maybe just a little, sort of tone that down. I would imagine because that is sticking forward, it would cast a bit more of a shadow. Maybe wouldn't see as much there. So you just kind of envision it in your mind and just think about maybe where those shadows would be cast. That's the best way to go about doing something like this. Will keep you at least on the right track. It doesn't have to be in any way perfect, but you know what? It's as close as you can get it to accurate. It'll feel a little more natural. That's my point. Took me a long time to get to my point, didn't it? There. Yeah, I kind of like that overhang. That's actually kind of interesting. We can even go further with that by using this to carve out that negative space there. It kind of looks like a little bit more of an overhang. It's interesting. Sometimes your rocks can look a little lumpy, kind of rounded, too much rounded on your mountains. The rocks are good that way. Mountains, I like them a little more jagged usually. So you can use this to kind of cut some angles. That works. All right, so you kind of refine your mountain as much as you want with that. But the other important step is to maybe grab just a smaller, this is just the quarter-inch flat brush, which you could use a detail round or anything you like. Just the 3/4 brush would be fine as well. I'm just going to refine some of these areas. Yeah, that works. That totally works. It's interesting. A little more, maybe just a touch of our yellow ochre. I like the idea of getting just a little more color in. Oh, there we go. Just splash that yellow ochre around. It does not need to be overly bright. This is a kind of a sunset. It doesn't need to be super white. A a little bit more orange tones, a little bit more pink is actually going to be, I think, a lot better. There we go. And if for some reason this gets muddy, I would just absorb a little bit of that oil with a paper towel, shop towel, not a paper towel. And then you should be okay. You do it with a paper towel. One of two things are going to happen. You're either going to have somebody's logo smushed into your paint, or you're going to get these terrible little shavings if you rub too hard with a paper towel. So use a rag or use a blue shop towel. Now I'm going to add a reflection underneath these little land areas I popped in. Yes, these are out of order. I really technically should have put in all of this stuff before the rocks, but you know what? Sometimes when it's painting, it's much, much easier to go out of order. And this is definitely one of those times because, yes, I'm going to have to repaint the edges of my rocks. I get a better feel for how the painting is going to be once those rocks are in. There's such a big portion of the landscape. And it just kind of allows me to put my small land areas that are in the background in the water. It allows me to put them in a nice place around the rocks. Makes it, you know, gives me more information as I paint the rocks, I guess is what I'm trying to say, or the small background details. Yeah. So I'm just pulling a quick reflection for these little rocks and details here, and that's honestly about all we need. Maybe another little bit of land that sticks out there, a little more red. You can go crazy with this, honestly. Have as much land detail as you like back here. It's all good. There we go. But whatever you do here, make sure you reflect it in the water. That's what's going to sell this effect, especially not just the shapes, but the colors as well. Any color you have above, it needs to be below. No choice. It has to be there. Makes it so much better. Before we go any further, I just want to be extra safe here, and I want to wipe away, mostly just the highlight areas of these rocks. Really, it's just a mid-tone. I haven't actually highlighted the rocks, but I'm a little concerned that there's too much paint on there. Just by the way it looks, I can see that just a little too wet. So here we go. We're going to take it off because that's the only way to be sure that you don't create mud. So grab your shop towels. We're going to need them, right? Let's get some of this off as well on this side. Now, if you had details on here that you'd like to preserve, you could just lay your shop towel flat on there and walk away for like 15 minutes, come back, peel it off, and you'd be okay. But because I don't have details that I want to preserve and I'm just really looking for the color of it, I can just wipe it away. Great. And what this also does is lightens the darks, so we'll need to put the darks in one more time at the very end. But oh, look at all that paint. We'll cake the highlight up nice and thick, but the mid-tone does not need to be that thick. So now we're going to go ahead and create these rock highlights. The only, now that we've wiped off the canvas, really the only thing that could go wrong is maybe just making them look too much like the cliff behind it. You want these to be a little bit more rounded off, like smaller rocks, not too pointy. Or I mean, I know rocks can be pointy, but just for the sake of the painting, it's going to look a little better. Just having some variety, I think. There we go. Leave plenty of room for your grass. Leave plenty of room for your grass. You're going to need it. You're going to need it. So don't over highlight, because if you do, you're just going to be painting your grass over your highlights. Not only is that a waste of time, it makes it more difficult. Much more difficult to actually get a good result on your grass. So there you go. In fact, I would say stop early. Stop early. And then figure out where you're going to do your grass. And if you need to come back and add an extra highlight to your rocks, you can. But I can't tell you how many times I've painted a lot of rocks and went back and covered at least half of them up with grass. A waste of time. It really is. Unless you just want to practice your rocks, then I guess it's fine. But like I said, it's kind of hard to paint grass on top of all this thick highlight. So there you go. That really works. Yeah, that really works. Maybe a little more highlight right there on that. Just make it interesting. Like I said, we'll put some more shadows in there as well. We'll do a little bit more to this side as well. You can make it look more like a rock and less like a mountain. Also by wrapping the highlight around the backside just a little. Because it's low to the ground, we're seeing that light spill all the way over the rock. Now I've just been adding some shadows here, and you can see I've really glopped on the highlight, and it's okay to glop on the highlight. I do have a little paper towel here ready to go, wiping my brush constantly, because if you get too much of the highlight into your shadow, it becomes muddy. So I'm always wiping off my brush. But what I was going to say was, it's okay to glop up your highlight, especially in the foreground. I know nothing's going to go over this except maybe grass, and I did say I wasn't going to overdo it. I think I overdid it. So if I'm going to put grass, I'm going to probably have to take off some of the paint. But that's okay. You know me. I tell you to do one thing, and then I turn around and I do the exact opposite. Oops. It's art. It happens. There's just, honestly, you can try to follow some certain steps, and they do get you to a nice result. But let's face it, every painting is just a little different. There we go. All right, so my point in saying all that is, look how gloppy it is in the foreground, and I like that foreground texture. I used, just a minute ago, I was putting on a highlight. I used a lot of paint, just kept on adding it, because I liked it. It's kind of glowing, and it's bright and pretty. So anyway, there's gonna be some grass there. You might as well get that started. Excellent. I'm gonna finish out this painting with just liner brush details. There's some grass, some dark grass, honestly, a lot of dark grass. We'll do a little light. I already started kind of doing some light. Well, let's do some dark ones. I think the dark ones, because it's more of a sunset painting, I think the dark ones are going to be more important to the painting today. Oh, liner brush stuff. Just almost can't overdo. Well, I mean, sure, you can overdo it, but it's hard to overdo it. As long as it's done, well, you don't want to just make a bunch of blobby grass or grass that's all looking the same. But if you can kind of make things that look natural, usually the more detail you add, the better your painting looks. Yeah, of course you don't want it to be too busy, but I find it takes a long time to make it look too busy. As long as you're doing it, like I said, doing it in a way that's natural looking. Nothing too out of place. There, one of the biggest things to watch out for when you're doing liner brush grass is to be sure that your scale is correct. As you go back, it needs to get much smaller very quickly. Kind of put some cracks in the rock there if you want to. What's great about the liner brush is it just doesn't mix. It goes right over anything that you have up here. So if you'd like to add in these cracks and details with the liner brush, go ahead. A lot of the times I'll go back in and detail out things like buildings or rocks, trees with the liner brush. Works out really good. Foreground details especially, really is what I'm talking about, not so much in the background. There we go. Makes a big difference, doesn't it? You can just add as much detail really as you want. You can go crazy until it is exactly the way you like. I think it adds something. It adds a very nice high contrast look. You know, some cracks here, and even in the shadow areas, you can do that. Excellent. Of course, you don't want to go over anything that you do with the liner brush more than once, or it could easily become rather muddy. So that would be the only thing to watch out for. Maybe you want right up in here a little tree or something, a little branch. You can just swap back and forth between your light and dark colors. You don't usually have to. Usually don't have to mix anything. You should have all the colors you need already on your palette by the time you're done with a painting. So that does make it pretty straightforward, doesn't it? Well, I think we're finished with this landscape painting for today. There was a lot of rocks, and it's always fun playing around with different warm colors. Hopefully you enjoyed seeing this. Don't forget to check out our website, our full-length DVD lessons, and our brushes and paint. Thanks for watching.